Let's get our lovely hello, everybody. Let's get it back. The Sea Devils will now dominate the next hour or two of the sense sphere. You must listen to our demands. Yeah, you definitely should listen to the demands. Demands for actually improving the quality of this show. Nice cock up already. Let's see if we can do some more. So, a Sea Devils spin-off. The BBC and Disney partners in big budget Doctor Who. A new Doctor, Russell Davies back as showrunner. So why am I concerned? Why am I anxious, worried and nonplussed? The Sensphere big debate should start now. I appear that's supposed to work. That's good. So I'll bring on my panel now, who might bail me out of any more problems. Hello, everybody. Hello, Paul. Hello, Jeremy. Hello, Hugh. Good evening.
Hey.
I was better in the rehearsal. Right. As we've been advertising for a few days now, we're serious clickbait at the moment, aren't we? We had news of the BBC spin-off from Doctor Who known as The War Between the Land and the Sea. Now, before I start clicking up headlines and everything, I want to go around the panel a bit. What are your worries or concerns, if you have any, about this latest idea?
I suppose mine itself starts with the title. The fact that it's called The War up front seems, I mean, it could obviously disabuse any expectation that creates, but you immediately think that it's going to be something that it's more grimmer than I think we're used to. Who knows? But I do sort of think, do I really want to see lots of explosions?
Yes, I go on. I mean, I could add loads of more, and I've got a rant in a minute. Jeremy or PD?
I think it's going too far going for a spin-off when the show's probably going to be cancelled in 2 years' time. So, it's like you're trying to fire something else off when it's like the show's on its last legs. It's like it's just blown up on the runway kind of thing. It's like it's just a bit crazy. It's just a waste of money, if you ask me.
Does this make sense? That following on from your point, we have talk of a spin-off when we've only seen one episode of the new Doctor, and we're already talking about diverging.
Yeah, I know it's a bit weird. As I said, Turner said that Shooty doesn't know, and the Millie don't know what they're doing in after the second season's shot, and it's like, well, you're gonna knock out another spin-off and then have another season after that if you can get it going. It's just weird. It's bad timing.
This also has vibes, and obviously, please butt in everybody, but this had vibes of when we got Chris Eccleston. Remember all the nonsense that we just were getting a new Doctor? I think we'd almost seen one episode and we were told he was leaving. And now we've got all this talk about spin-offs, and yes, I can do another show about the idea that Shooty and Millie might only stay for 2 seasons. But as you said, PD, we've got talk of a spin-off and rumours of other things before we're really embedded in this new revived show. Jeremy?
Yeah, I agree. I think that those are my same sentiments. I think that certainly I can't see there's going to be any mileage in this spin-off. It might just be a one-off, but I think they should really spend the money and concentrate on the show that they've got at the moment. And they certainly need to, judging by the church on Ruby Road.
Yes, I mean, if that's their introduction to monsters, villains, and everything, I don't have much trust in what they might do with Sea Devils over a 5 or 6 part story. Hugh, what are your thoughts on this great land. I keep wanting to call it the land before time forgot or something. The war between the land and the sea.
Yeah, and it's, the other thing in terms of that is if you look at what happened with whenever they launched New Who, it was a reasonable amount of time before Torchwood came in, and there was sort of there was build up to it in the series, whereas this doesn't feel as if there's been any build up at all, and it does keep Doctor Who being talked about while we wait for 5 months. Is it being talked about the right thing? It does feel a bit of a distraction.
Yeah. And this is the other thing. It's almost GNT-esque. Let's just talk about Doctor Who with any old kind of headlines or anything. We've had talk about the actors leaving. We've got talk of the spin-off. We've got talk about the next series being controversial. You just think, are you just trying to just engender any sort of animosity or interest, if that's what you want to call it, rather than actually love of the show and building up traction to build up ratings big time?
Yeah, it just, again, sort of like the hint. I mean, this has obviously been leaked deliberately. It's not, although people have said they found out about it. It's leaked deliberately in order to do something. And immediately, obviously, we're talking about it, which is, in one sense, it's a good thing. But I'd say we're now going to talk about that rather than talk about what happens with Shooty. Then it just feels as if we're not established.
Yeah. Now, I'll give you all a bit more detail of what's been said. In the Mirror, in November, it was first mooted. We had this Doctor Who spin-off to start it, filming in the spring, which is apparently still going to happen. And one or two of the points came from this one was it's going to be 5 parts. Now, there's been different rumours all the time, but they reckon it's going to be a 5-part spin-off, the war between the land and the sea, the first of several planned series centering on monsters from the series. Now, before I bring people in, there's a quotation here from Russell Davies. There are things coming up that are brand new ways of telling stories. The science fiction world is so creative and so money-making right now, I think your wildest dreams can come true. So you've got this idea that we could have a few spin-offs relating to the monsters. I'm just wondering, are we going to get the viewpoint of the Sea Devils? I mean, I thought this was an idea to just get UNIT back in.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in there that I didn't know from that article. I didn't know what the title of it was called, which I'm not impressed about. I didn't know it was going to be a 5-part series. Just thought it was going to be a one-off. I don't see there's going to be any mileage in this. I really don't. If it was a Dalek spin-off with, a group of bandits in a similar theme of like Blake 7 fighting the Daleks through space, then yeah, that probably has got some mileage to it. But with the Sea Devils, I'm not entirely sure it's a very good idea.
No,
not at all. What were you going to say, PD?
Yeah, I'll go back to what Jeremy just said there. It's like they're a strong character, the Sea Devils, but they're not that strong, if you know what I mean. So it's just you're taking a small kind of thing. It's like what they tried to do with Star Trek with City Alpha 5 and Khan. Like everyone knows Khan, but it's just nobody really wants to really know what happened on City Alpha 5 afterwards. They told you what happened.
Very niche. I agree with you. They're not listed in the top 5 monsters as was renowned, were they? And what makes me wonder, following on from your points, is are we just going for the victimhood thing? Because the Sea Devils have been put upon, the Silurians have been put upon, and whether this, if I'm following the quotations there, that we could get the viewpoint of the victims of being the Sea Devils of man. Might be another, there could be a clever way the BBC could have a nice little rant here at us lot. We've been nasty to the Sea Devils and the Silurians. Hello, and I'm going to check if John Speed can hear us and speak. Hiya, John. That was a good one. It looks as though he's frozen, so that hasn't worked yet. Jeremy, do you think I've sniffed out a possibility here that the victims are the Sea Devils? It's a new viewpoint. It's us pesky humans again.
Again, I just can't see any mileage out of it. I can't see how they're going to tell the story of this. You know, I don't know what angle Russell T Davies is going to come at this. You know, is it going to be more of a soap opera type thing, you know, and more science fantasy? But I don't think that it's going to warrant a long run at all. And I'd rather them spend the money on the series and concentrate on that and getting it 100% right, rather than going off at a tangent and creating different types of spin-offs that probably very few people will watch.
Yeah, I mean, we've had spin-offs in Doctor Who. I knew of them. I can't say I've watched every Sarah Jane. I don't think I watched every Torchwood. I did watch Class, but that was so different. We and K9 and Company wasn't my sort of thing. I'll be honest with you. I was about 12 or 13, but it didn't really do it for me. And the music didn't help either. But you know, the spin-offs in Doctor Who, I don't think they're good bedfellows. I don't think yet.
If you're going to do a spin-off, you've got to back it up with 6 episodes and say that was the pilot episode, and these are the 6 episodes, and what do people think? And you work on the basis of the feedback from that, and then you decide whether you want to go for a series 2. Like with K9 and Company, they could have developed that into a situation, a series, and eventually they did with the Sarah Jane Adventures, more or less.
Yeah,
and that's how that turned out to be.
I mean,
with all of the ones that we're talking about, you have the possibility of development. I don't. This is this thing. I mean, it seems so specific that I can see you can get one series out of it, but where do you go from there?
I'm just intrigued, Hugh. I am intrigued that whether the Sea Devils and maybe the Silurians later, if they're going to do something like that, they've been put upon. The John Pertwee years, they were put upon by the human species. The classic, you know, we kind of conquered the planet while they were hibernating, sort of thing, and it feeds very well into this story, whether you go on about global change and all the rest of it, and man dominating too much and population growth. And I don't know. I was watching Ski Sunday tonight, and there was a rant about the weather, and I started thinking, oh, BBC, I like a bit of Ski Sunday, the theme music and a little bit of skiing, and then you switch over. And now I was hearing about, you know, the weather's so different that none of these rich people can ski anymore. I was crying. I was just thinking, what is this? So is this a chance for RTD to get more message in here? Sea Devils are poor souls.
What would we have thought if we were, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old and we tuned into Dr. John Pertwee and the Sea Devils, and the following year producer Barry Letts said they were so popular, let's bring them back for a special, a one-off or whatever, you know, or a development in another series. Well, I mean, the BBC at that time would have probably said, no, we have not got any money, so we can't do it. But I don't know whether we would have watched it. Would we have actually said, yeah, let's tune in and we enjoy it or not? But I mean, as I said, I'm a lot older now, so obviously you can look back at these things and see what's going on and then make up your own mind and judgment. But I wouldn't want to really see a spin-off with the Sea Devils.
No, well, and before Hugh comes in, I can see you're about to come in, but Terry Nation wanted to do a spin-off of the Daleks. It never got off the ground.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Don't get me wrong. I'd like to see the Sea Devils return.
Yeah.
Fine. But in the context within the show.
Hugh,
the other thing is, you know, it's not just about rolling on a sort of a monster for examination. You've got to see where it is in the Doctor Who, in the universe, and you know, does this mean that you're concentrating purely upon unit, which makes it, you know, from my point of view, militaristic and not what I'm interested in, or are you then getting Shooty or David Tennant popping in for bits of it or whatever? Again, with Torchwood, with the Sarah Jane Adventures, you had something that linked to the seas and was clear. But if it's going to be this type of thing, the Adventures of Unit just don't interest me on their own.
No, Look, I love John Pertwee. I was a kid at the time. John Pertwee's my doctor. But they were the background. And of course, John Pertwee was always arguing with them and not happy with the military. So I was on his side, really.
Mhm.
So, and I'm looking at what problem being. Problem being, he's agreeing with me. Sea Devils will be all about climate change and possibly fronted by two lesbians in that box set trailer. I've just watched The Legend of the Sea Devils today, and I wondered whether I was watching about the Sea Devils or some private life issues. It was quite interesting.
Oh yeah.
But we will come back to that, everybody who's listening. We will talk about the 3 stories in more detail that the Sea Devils were in. But at the moment, we want to really just focus on the spin-offs and our fears or concerns or what we think they're going to do with it. So here's one example. It was Cult Box that brought it back into the news this week. The title, it's going to be a spin-off. What did you think of this, guys? The series described as a spin-off of the fantasy action saga Doctor Who. I didn't know it was an action fantasy adventure saga. I didn't know that. I'm learning so much about the program I've watched for all these years. I didn't realize. Did you?
No.
Well, you're learning tonight, Hugh. This is like play school. I'm teaching you. You see, this is the future.
Who writes all this stuff? Are they just like 20-year-olds that have never seen the series before?
Look, it's really true. I'm putting it there again, Jeremy. The series described as a spin-off of the fantasy action saga. Oh my God, that sounds like Game of Thrones on the cheap or something like that. So yes, and then it gives a bit of information about the Sea Devils and the Silurians that we always see in the backs of Weetabix and everything. Nothing news learned there. So I am worrying about this. I seriously am. What do you think they will do with the Sea Devils since they're going to bring them back? I've mentioned they may be made victims. We might have to see that they are, reptiles, and they've been punished by how humans are treating the planet, and they'll make a heavy play on that. It'll be like Green Death, the Green Death on acid. What do you think?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have to say, my fear is Russell T Davies is just going to plagiarize half a Big Finish, like he did with the first 60th anniversary special, which was a Star Beast. So, if you listen to it from Big Finish, it'll be like kind of a hybridized version of that. So, I think that's my first concern.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to mention that later. Is where his inspiration coming from is really starting to worry me big time. What are you thinking, Jeremy, about what you think he might do actually with the Sea Devils?
It could set them on present day Earth and talk about the environment, and then you'll have obviously different characters who will be of different sexual persuasion, etc., etc. So there'll be a lot of that brought in, and like I said, I don't think it's going to generate enough interest for people to tune in.
I mean, I'm throwing in lots of spin-off ideas and thoughts at the same time. I mean, we had a few years ago under Stephen Moffat, and Archie Collins just mentioned this. We had ideas of Unit Paternoster Gan. Remember all the rumours about that? We were going to have a Sontaran, a Silurian, and a human, adventure. I couldn't cope with the Sontaran. I don't like how they've changed the Silurians, so I don't really want them bringing the Sea Devils back. There's all those concerns mixed up with what's going on here. I know, and I do find it a major problem, and I'm trying not to rant before I play the rant to give everyone a few minutes break. But yes, go on. Sorry, keep going.
Or is this an exercise for the production team to go to Tenerife or something and film it there and have like the Sea Devils and Treasure Island, something like that, with pirates?
Oh, they have started with pirate idea, haven't they? And I'm not reading out problem beings, but he's bringing the humour to the party. I can see. But I don't know where we're going with this, and it is concerning me. Now, just to kind of lighten it before I have a rant, and we really then start looking at the details of what we could do here. Let's see if you've got any ideas, lads, about this. Let me just show you it first. Can we crazy caption this Sea Devil? I mean, look at the state of him. I've got a few ideas already. So, for example, I don't think that Sea Devil could swallow the Timeless Children. That's what's happened here. He's got a swollen neck. He's got a bit of flux in his throat. Fishbone, perhaps, on allergic reaction to New Who. Has anyone got any little quick quips on why is he looking in such a pickle, that poor little sea devil there?
He swallowed a new smoke screwdriver.
Yes, you couldn't swallow that, PD, at all.
Is he being sent to Rwanda?
Would he fit on the flight?
Or those fish and chips were a bit greasy.
Yes. Oh, I used to hate, Jeremy, those necks that they did. I hated those necks in Warriors of the Deep. Absolute shockers they were.
Yeah, but that's where the actor's head is, to see through the costume.
It is, but I've got no interest in that, Jeremy. You know, actors, they can suffer. Didn't Kevin Lindsay suffer so much in the Time Warrior? I need a bit of suffering, you know. So yes, he's melting. I'm just looking at this. What's he got here? Oh, he's really going for it here. Good old problem being. I'm just saying, come on, those watching, you must have a few quips of this crazy caption. I'll take them off for now and see if any more come up. Right, to give everybody a little break for a moment, I just thought, just to trigger people, I wanted to put some of my thoughts together in a 4-minute monologue from Noble. So if you can just bear in mind, I am going to just let rip for a few moments and see what the panel think straight after that. Okay? Breaking news of any new Doctor Who TV material hidden in the Gallifrey Guardian of the Doctor Who Weekly or Monthly used to be greeted with crazed excitement. It was a thrill. I remember the tangible wave of expectation when John Nathan Turner sneakily announced at the Lonleat 1983 20th Anniversary Convention, stood beside Liz Sladen, that one story title in the next series will be Warriors of the Deep, Sea Devils and Silurians. It's all I thought about in the long drive home. Yet this doesn't excite me in the same way. Feels more like an impending tooth extraction. The war between the land and the sea sounds as bland as saying the sky's blue, the grass is green. And your point is? Is it framed to be non-offensive in this highly toxic, reactionary and angry current atmosphere? Well, I'm offended that the BBC and Disney think that they can foist a lame title spin-off on us without establishing or reviving the main Doctor Who show first. The mothership needs to be safe and secure before the shuttles scuttle off. This is cart before the horse. Or more accurately, this is the main game, the reason Disney Plus coughed up their dollars, the expansion of the Whoniverse to accompany and emulate Marvel Universe. But hasn't that failed? Isn't that a dead duck? It is like those poor prospectors migrating to a gold mining town after the gold rush has been and gone. Sorry lads. So the main objective is revealed. It is not to strengthen the brand, it is to bleed it dry. It is to squeeze the pips out of a decaying fruit already bruised and battered by Chibnall's timeless children and flux, treating it like a toy to be vandalised and kicked. Don't spread the Doctor Who-ness too thin, like some lightly buttered toast in a cheap bed and breakfast. Be lavish and rich in your main Doctor Who diet. Now, I'm not against a spin-off series. I just question the timing and the choices. The Disney deal is thought to be for the next 2 series or 2 years. So is this a mad rush to exploit their dollars and streaming services? Is Russell Davies writing it as well? We all know how overstretched Stephen Moffat became with 2 series running concurrently. Russell Davies is already resorting to comic strips and pantomime and fantasy for inspiration. Now, television has a history of exploiting popular characters and ideas to make more money. The Mary Tyler Moore Show spawned Rhoda amongst others. The Bionic Woman was a successful sequel to The $6 Million Man. Frasier followed Cheers. George and Mildred and Robin's Nest followed Man About the House. Knots Landing was the baby of Dallas. The Colbys the same for Dynasty. And of course, we had K9 and Company, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures and Class. But the quality and success and longevity did vary. Now take your pick from that list which was successful. Why run before you can walk? Why keep flushing out crap before the plumbing is right in your main loo? A spin-off without the Doctor and the TARDIS I find is very much the ugly sister. Stephen Moffat got it right. This is a man in a blue magic police box who can go anywhere in time and space. I mean, we've just had 4 specials, 3 of which were on modern day Earth. But that meant the dialogue and characters were bedded to the modern political Japanese knotweed of critical race theory, gender politics and woke messaging. So if we remain on modern Earth for the spin-off, we know that the knotweed now planted in the show is hard to erase. We have not ventured into history. The 1666 Isaac Newton was not a history that has happened. The potential of the show has not been realised while Russell Davies bathes in his glory too of the woke world. So spin-off trapping us back on modern day Earth sounds like a third Christmas Day meal in one afternoon that the poor Vicar of Dibley had to face one episode. John Pertwee's Third Doctor thought exile to modern day Earth was a punishment, so now Russell Davies and the BBC delivers it in spades. Is it because they're happy to? They know their message and agenda and they see it as a priority over stories and ideas? Now, Torchwood and Sarah Jane Adventures were mostly singular episodes, just like most of Doctor Who. Again, I fear this. Build up a world, develop a mood, make it episodic. And I don't want the Sea Devils back in this current climate of media fads. That once glorious and feared Sea Devil attacked sea bases and submarines, scuttling in the dark and shadows, draped in fishermen's net gauze, using a flashy gun, whispering and hissing in malice, only matched by Broton and Terror of the Zygons, will no doubt, in Russell Davies' current fantasy trip mind, end up like Marvelised Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or some ramped up Touche Turtle with the audience playing the part of Dum Dum. The legend of the Sea Devils tapped quite a way into that fantastical mythical tripe, with flying sea devils and samurai-esque swords. The Sea Devils were the thin of nightmares. My 3-year-old self would not venture to the toilet because of the dark hallway, and nowhere way would I go in the sea, for fear of meeting the Sea Devil. Make Doctor Who good. Spin-offs tend to come from public demand. No one is begging for them. I end my panopticon polemic. Now over to the panel. So, food for thought there. And while we've got food for thought and people are listening and we've got loads of good text there, I'm just going to remind people, please like and subscribe. With every subscription, we are helping those unemployed Peladonian miners after the modernisation with the Galactic Federation. It's the truth, folks. I'm telling the truth. Subscribe today. Please help us. Cheers. So, panel, I had a little rant today. Couldn't help it, you know, and I'm sorry. Somebody's in the thread has said I forgot Mark and Mindy. But what are your thoughts, really, about this spin-off scenario? You know.
Sorry, I didn't listen. I couldn't hear what was said on the tape earlier on, so I didn't know what the rant was that you said.
Could you hear Hugh?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Loud and clear.
No, Jeremy, I'm just checking technology. You know what I'm like. I'm worried about that. Hugh, what were your thoughts overall?
I mean, I'm just sort of stuck to a lot of what you said. I agree with. It's just, what's the point of this up front? And it can be clever and it can do something. It feels as if it's pushing it more to the action part that was being referred to in the thing, which has never been the interesting thing about Doctor Who to me. And you know, I just fear, you know, we're talking about a war, so therefore it means lots of guns, and I don't want guns. Obviously, the Sea Devils, whenever they appeared, had the flashy guns, as you mentioned, but that's a sort of what the monsters, or that's what the opposition do, and to an extent, it's what UNIT did as well. But if we're going down that route, it just feels to me wrong in terms of Doctor Who.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting some interesting points in the thread there. PD, what were your thoughts overall as we
just got this horrible feeling it's going to turn out to be a piddle-poor version of Pirates of the Caribbean. The Sea Devils. Just a horrible feeling of just hearing all of this now. It's just going to be a very bad spin-off. And as I was kind of referring to earlier, the plane's not off the ground yet. So why are you trying to run away with a spin-off before you even got in the air? And
especially when I mean, I have to say, oh yeah, there he is. I mean, he won't look like that now, though, Jeremy. There's no way he'll look like that now.
What do you think? I think it's very
rubbish.
What's he whispering to you? They don't even whisper properly anymore.
CGI.
Yeah, oh yeah, don't fly. Go and get him flying, Jeremy, because that's what I did in Legend.
I don't think it wants to fly. I'll put you back in the box now.
But when I was thinking about it, I thought, do you know what? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I can see the Marvel blurring with the Sea Devil, and it worries me sick. And like we were saying, it's as Hugh said, if it's all action, you can just see it's going to be wham, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
The sword, I mean, remember, because I'm worried, I'm asking another question here. How concerned are you how this new version of the Sea Devils might rewrite canon and break the continuity of Sea Devils? My concern is that the Sea Devil, and we'll see them later with their classic gun in their hand, the Bertry era, they now have a kind of samurai, amazing fantasy sword.
Yeah.
And if they want to continue that, then we are going down Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I am going to be like Dum Dum watching Two Shade Turtle.
That is going to be the comparison. and you know, like I said, if I was the head of the BBC or series and serials, I'd say, you're not making it, forget it. Just spend the money, concentrate on the original series, or make an extra episode of Doctor. And incorporate.
Our suspicion is that while Disney are still involved, and that's not guaranteed beyond the 2 years, we need to get the most out of them. As in, if I was a bad wolf, this is what they're thinking, isn't it? Let's establish a whole Hooniverse before the money runs out or Disney changes their mind.
Yeah, I'm surprised Disney are thinking along those lines of a spin-off. I mean, you know, but
I'm worried because I can't see. I mean, RTD seems to be right in this. I saw the broadcast, the kind of production notes, and you start to think he's so overstretched. That was my other point. He was so overstretched that Stephen Moffat had some great ideas when he wasn't show running, but when he was running Sherlock and Doctor Who, he was stretched. You could tell.
Yeah,
but that was madness in terms of doing that, and to an extent, you know, even whenever Torchwood started, I think RTD's writing was affected because he was trying to make sure that went okay, even though he wasn't spending as much time on it.
I'm trying not to exasperate too much, but I'm failing, lads, on this one. I really am. I mean, they seem to have this strange idea when they bring back a monster, is that the designers look at the last time they were shown. Now, I would prefer them to go back to the fishnet. I say fishnet. Fisherman's net. Well, I don't know. It'll sell. But I'll tell you what, while I am talking about that, do you know what? I can make it blur, you know. Let's hear. On Tuesday, we will be talking about, at 4:00, we will be talking about the controversial transformation of BBC's Doctor Who and explore the shift towards romance and sex. And so that might be an interesting one to look at. Since I've inadvertently mentioned sex and all the rest of it, that's where we're going next, folks. Okay, so back to good old Who here. So has anyone got any more thoughts on the breaking of canon, and they might want to show continuity with the Sea Devils, which means samurai swords? Oh, and by the way, before PD you come in, Celestial Toymaker with his Mandarin outfit was a problem, wasn't he? Apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yet, I was watching Jodie Whittaker today. Yes, I feel ill. I was watching Legend of the Sea Devils today, and she was wearing a Mandarin outfit that looked a bit like the Celestial Toymaker. Very interesting. So 1 minute it's cultural appropriation, the next minute it's not. But we had this Imperial Far Eastern kind of flavour to their costume. Are they going to continue that? Should they continue that? Is it problematic? Should we go back to the original? Or, as Hugh has said to me a few times on our streams when we did the... was it the Time Teaks Roadshow? I can't remember. You said, don't bring anything back in this present iteration of Doctor Who because you will ruin it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because we keep on bringing stuff back, and it's meant to appeal to those of us who have spent far too much time watching the programme. As we talked about last time, you know, the mention of Mavic Chen, which I groaned about, because who on earth this is just sort of like that's fan masturbation at that stage rather than anything else. And establish new monsters. You should be trying to do something new. not always going back. And I'd just like to, forget about, particularly in terms of the main show, forget about Daleks, forget about Cybermen, forget about anything that we've seen before, and give us something new.
Yes, in fact, don't touch anything. PD, what do you think they would do with the Sea Devil now, design-wise? Where do you think they'll go with it?
Well, I'm not really happy with the Japanese samurai design from the Terror of the Deep and from the last special, because I just think it's, it just doesn't suit. I could understand it for the because it was based in China with Madame Chen for the last special, for the Jodie Whittaker special. Completely understand that. But if you're going to have it somewhere else, they're going to have to lose the kind of pirate-ish design, go back to the old school Sea Devils, unless they're going to be in the past. It's going to be a present-based show. They've got to keep have a slightly newer design, but we go back to the old fishnets.
Well, yeah. Do you think it's worthwhile or clever idea to keep the link with pirates and Sea Devils, or is that just a bit twee?
Well, the problem is you're dealing with Disney money as well. So if you go Pirates of the Caribbean, going to go, oh, you're just copying Pirates of the Caribbean, which Russell will, knowing Russell. And it will be twee, as you said. Yeah, it'll just be, we just want to do something new with them. So like in the modern times, just do something new with them.
So are we going to get a Jack Sparrow Sea Devil?
Yes, yeah, probably.
Actually,
he'll be the one in the
Amber Heard Sea Devil.
But what were you saying on our fan community page the other day, Hugh? You were talking about whether we can have Sea Devils, Sea Ladies.
Yeah, well, it's this whole thing again. So if you're looking at it, and particularly if you're looking at the possibility that we look at the Sea Devil point of view, there is in all of the stories the idea that perhaps Sea Devils and Silurians are not that bad. But you can't then just call them Sea Devils, because unless they want to be called Sea Devils, unless they identify as Sea Devils and come on and go, that's really good, we like the name, it just seems something that you will then have to discuss, and then people will go into the whole thing that it's some form of stereotyping this magnificent powerful race that we're shooting every 5 seconds. It just seems very odd.
And as Problem Bean says, oh my God, they're going to be led by a female Sea Devil. We had a female Silurian lady with Paternoster Gan and all the rest of it. And you can just see, if they do bring them back, what they will possibly be tempted to do. I was happy as a kid to see the Sea Devils hibernating, to hear about them hibernating, not reproducing. And of course, once you bring all this nonsense into it, it breaks it all up. Instead of it being sci-fi, fantasy, or escapism, it turns into, what do my mum and dad do? It starts to turn into something else, doesn't it? And I think that's just wrong for the show. It's completely wrong. Now, lots of people have fears about what's coming up. So we've just got a little excerpt from our friends Willie and Walkie. So if you bear with us for a couple of minutes, they've also been discussing Sea Devils coming back.
Grandad,
Yes.
the Sea Devils, they're coming back.
Oh, good.
Oh, but they sound really satanic and evil. Very pejorative too, as my teacher would say. But calling anyone devils shows prejudice. I don't think the BBC should do this.
We had the political correctness wars in the 1990s. You know, we weren't allowed to use black sheep, blackboard. We couldn't say anything in the 1990s. You have to have a villain, a baddie, son. I mean, the word devil hints at that. Do you know the Sea Devils call those land crawlers? I mean, they're no better. You need a good monster. Your dad would not go in the sea for months because of the Sea Devils. Having a bath was hard enough. My God, kids.
But I googled them, and they are dressed as samurai gear and clothing linked to the Far East imperial families. This is cultural appropriation. Like that racial slur, the celestial toy maker.
Dear me. Listen, what's the problem with that? 15th Doctor wearing a kilt. Have you got a problem with that, son? Have you got a problem with that? What about ordering a Chinese takeaway? Was that cultural appropriation? You don't moan about that when you stay with me and your gran on a Friday night. It's multiculturalism, son. You want to see what your gran wears to bed? It's very exotic, it's very nice. It's allowed, son. Do you know, the Sea Devils used to have this little gauze on them like a fishing net. And they were changed by the producers later on. Nothing to do with Malcolm Hulke. Go back to that. You'll have no nonsense about cultural appropriation then, son.
But it just looks like another example of Classic Who using animals and ugly features to be demonized.
No.
We should try to respect difference. That's what New Who's all about, Grandad.
Oh, you mean like goblins eating babies? Yeah. Grimm's fairy tales, Hans Christian Andersen, Roald Dahl. To be scared is a right of living. Classic Who, Philip Hinchcliffe, we had the Pyramids of Mars, we had Brain of Morbius, earlier we had the Tomb of the Cybermen. Whoa. You just want Doctor Who looking like some sort of computer game. That's your problem. Levels and all that nonsense, fantasy silliness. I mean, what was all that nonsense with Jodie with a frog on the chair? And that man covered in teeth. I tell you what, was an insult to Janet Street Porter, that. You want to enjoy Classic Who. That's where you get scared.
Yes, Grandad.
Kids today. Oh, well, there you go. So we're trying to do a vox pops of as many people as possible. Obviously, Grandad was trying to keep him on the straight and narrow, but the wokester there was not having none of it. So next question, I suppose I've got to ask you about is, and this is a key question, folks, because if we're going to talk about the 3 Sea Devil stories and how they're going to come back in a spin-off, my concern is that the rot set in with Warriors of the Deep. And it's because of their costume change, how they were treated. They were second class to the Silurians. I really do think it was the Warriors of the Deep that caused the problem. Discuss. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a hugely problematic story. I quite like some of it. And it covers all of the ideas about whether Silurians and Sea Devils somehow deserve the world and stuff like that. And it's got one of the great endings in Doctor Who by being quite so downbeat. But it felt, I remember watching it as if it would never end, and then it ends really quickly with everyone dying because it's not really thought out. I fear that this might start with everyone dying if it's a war, and then we go from there. It's just, maybe Russell's trying to find the way that Peter Davison didn't.
Jeremy?
But there are lots of problems with Warriors of the Deep. I mean, episode 1 is great. It's very good. And there's some very good moments in it. But when you get to the Merca and the rubber that fall on Tegan.
And Ingrid Pitt.
And Ingrid Pitt doing the karate. And the lighting, of course, because obviously if the base is under attack, then they'd have a red light, or it would be much darker. They could have really done something more effective than that. And the problem with bright light or brilliantly lit studio is that it shows up a lot of the flaws of the monsters and the production standards. But you can achieve quite a lot through atmospheric lighting. And I think obviously they missed a trick there.
I mean, with the lighting, that would have made one dramatic change. I still had a problem even before we get onto costume and everything, I had a problem with the fact that all I knew was the Silurians and the Sea Devils were kind of cousins, and basically Malcolm Hulke, I'm not cheapening it, but there were similar stories, the Silurians and the Sea Devils, and what happened and how UNIT treated them and all the rest of it. But why were they seen as second class? I mean, if you're going to bring back the Sea Devils, you're bringing back the lesser of the two, apparently, because the Silurians obviously seem to be the ones who are running the gaff. The trouble is, as you know, the Silurians were brought back, and I hated how they were brought back. So what's left? Sea Devils. I mean, I just think they were seen in the end as just warriors. They were. I mean, it was called Warriors of the Deep, and they were the ones who did all the dirty work, weren't they, with the Merca? And the Silurians just seemed to kind of wake them up from their hibernation and then just try and sort things out with that nuclear device to kind of cause a fight between the warring factions. It just seemed to me they were just seen as glorified soldiers.
Yeah, but also the Silurians themselves they looked more cuddly rather than frightening. You know, I mean, it was they could have been done differently, and I think the whole story could have been done slightly differently, and I think it would have made a difference. I mean, the Merca could have played it as an invisible monster.
Yeah,
that would have been better, and you would have just had the shadow or the negative outline of the Merca, so you didn't actually need to physically see it in that sense, like they did in the Planet of Evil.
Yeah,
something like that.
Or even, as we always laugh, Planet of the Daleks. We're watching that now on iPlayer, and you know that, what was it, that circle of stones, and you got all the eyes, and you got the sound of some bird, some pterodactyl type bird in the air, and but you didn't see it, and it worked. It gets the imagination going.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is a classic thing throughout, and what this is a form of horror in that sense. It's a classic thing in horror that you don't want to reveal the monster because it's always a disappointment, even if you've done it well. I think it's Stephen King who writes about the thing is, if you open the door and the monster's 10 foot tall, you say, well, I was really scared it's going to be 50 foot tall. And if it's 50 foot tall, you say, I was really scared it was going to be 500 foot tall. If you show the monster, it's almost certainly, even with the best effects, going to be a bit of a disappointment to the imagination of the person watching it.
Yeah, because to me, if I look back at the Warriors of the Deep and those 4 episodes, it was part 1, and it was seeing the hibernating sea devils as an army that got me. That thrilled me. It's a bit like seeing the Planet of the Daleks and the frozen army, so to speak. That excited. But once you revived them, I mean, it was more atmospheric in that cave where they were hibernating than it was, as you said, with the bad lighting on that sea base.
Yeah, but also they always have trouble doing big monsters. So if you've got the operator, the stuntman or whatever, in a great big costume, he's going to obviously be struggling moving around, like the one in the Caves of Androzani, and the dragon in the Mind of Evil. But with the dragon in the Mind of Evil, it was selected shots, so it did look reasonable at the very least. Obviously, with the Caves of Androzani, again, the shots weren't quite right. But with the Merca, I mean, it's just badly shot, really.
Even with more money and stuff like that, the Goblin King wasn't really any better and didn't do anything.
No,
he was static, and you could tell.
And he couldn't speak.
Well, it just growled, yeah. But the fact is, the whole prop was static because it was so big. You'd have to have full mechanisms to get it working.
Yeah. And let's be honest, if you're going to bring back, I mean, to be honest, it was a mishmash, wasn't it? I suppose it was good old J&T. What you had is, let's bring back the Silurians, the Sea Devils, and let's have a new kind of sea creature. They were doing so much that you diminished each one of them. And since the Sea Devils were diminished to just basic soldiers, reptilian soldiers, my concern is Hugh's point, which is if you're going to have unit versus the Sea Devils, you've just got soldiers versus soldiers.
True. I mean, we had the same problem with the Paradigm Daleks when Moffat brought those in.
Yeah. And then there's no story. There's no real storyline. All you've got is lots of action sequences and stunts with the big budget.
Or you do overlay it with a lot of soap opera.
Yeah.
So you sort of like, because there obviously are, and we've seen but particularly with the Silurians in terms of this, you can have different viewpoints within the enemy, and how they want to progress, and that's okay. But I worry that this is going to be, we actually get to know about the personal lives of sea devils.
I think you will, Hugh. I think you will.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to hold back from our favourite. I know it's our favourite, it's the Sea Devils original, but you know, you've got a bit of the class system there, really, a bit like the Draconians. And since then, you had Salvix, which I thought was an unfortunate leader's name, but you had Salvix, who led the hibernated elite group one, was it? I think of the Sea Devils and Warriors of the Deep. But he led them to just patrolling corridors very slowly. That was the other thing I noticed in Warriors of the Deep. In the original, they are very, very active. They are very mobile, Sea Devils. They really are nimble. And they were seen as clumsy. They were trying to keep the helmet on, weren't they? I mean, they were just trying to stop that wobbling helmet from coming off. And they just looked cheap and nasty and diminished and useless. And if the Merker was supposed to be the star of the show, well, of course, it was a pantomime star of the show. You know, the whole thing did not deliver. And yet I thought the story had promise.
I think one of the things you're highlighting there is that original realization of the Sea Devils was excellent. You know, that's why you were scared about going into the water, because it wasn't as if they were lumbering or anything like that. They were quick. They looked good in terms of that. If you want to see good use of money, they are a terrific design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mirko, you could have fixed that quite easy if you just put a load of tentacles on it and then wishing away, sort of lashing around. But it's like, you know, it's just those samurai armor and all that was like just overkill, and they didn't have stuntmen playing; they had basic performers in them, so they weren't as nimble and fast on their feet, and it was just, wasn't good.
And that was the shame, wasn't it? Because the Sea Devils originally, yes, they had stuntmen, and they were very, very nimble, and that's what showed to me. That scared me about them, because you can have rubber men in costumes and everything, and they all seem to have a certain gait and walk. But the Sea Devils stood out different to me. They really did frighten me.
Yeah.
Whereas this manifestation just didn't. Now, Raymond Williams has got here, I'm surprised by the choice of the Sea Devils. The Zygons were an easier choice. And I know what you mean, Raymond. I mean, Zygons, I've even mentioned in my pantomime polemic, panopticon polemic. I did mention the Zygons, that Broton's Whisper, for example, was iconic. The trouble is, what did they do with them in the Day of the Doctor? What did they do with them there, and the later one with Capaldi? Oh, I don't like the new manifestation of the Zygons. Fairly good prosthetics and everything, but I just didn't like them. So yeah, your choices are limited, and I think Hugh and a few others, you've said, why don't we bring something new to the table? And that's the point. So yeah, any other issues from Warriors of the Deep, especially pertaining to the Sea Devils, who we're bringing back, that come to mind? We've got their gait, the bad lighting, their costume. This is when the gun starts to get interesting as well. If I just bring the pictures back up. Dear me. I mean, well, I don't know. Where do you start with that? That wouldn't scare anybody, that would it? I mean, honestly, look at it.
It's like a massager.
Their feet seem run as well. I know they're reptilian feet, but oh my god! I mean, and it's the skirt. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we've had transitioning going on for years. So basically, we've gone from, you can see the original Sea Devils in the background, and then you've got this strange. I don't know. I know it's like an old Roman warrior or something in one respect, with those kind of.
Well, there's an ability about the original Sea Devils that's just lost with the armor.
It was such genius what they did with that original. It really was. Right. Well, I did want to actually mention. Let's just see if I've got it there. Give us a moment. I was just going to actually say that actually. We all are on different websites and Facebooks and everything. And actually, at the moment, the truth is there's an awful lot of talk about, on this day. And of course, it is relevant to say, if I did my time flash moment here, that actually the first 2 episodes of Warriors of the Deep were shown 40 years ago, yesterday, and the day before. I know, 40 years, and the average was 7.55 million watching it. And there's the shot. That's the shot that got me. Those hibernating warriors waiting to be awoken. That was what got me. That's what made them sinister. And you know, the slow walk down to the bowels of the caves with the Silurians saying we're going to wake them. You know, oh, that was brilliant in part 1, as you were saying, Jeremy. You know, part 1 had it. Yeah. And then, of course, we woke them up, and maybe we shouldn't have. Now, let's have a look. Yeah, so we've got the shots there. It doesn't work, does it? I mean, 40 years ago, the lighting, and remember, this was selling the beginning of the last season, sadly, for Peter Davison and Janet Fielden and everybody. This kind of was the start, wasn't it?
You can see, Brandon, that the lighting's not working, that picture you've got there, because the decal on the door it just shoots out in your face. Big white piece of paper we stuck on with a 5.
Yes,
somebody's darkened that down. It would have looked perfect.
Yeah, somebody's just printed it off on the printer.
Yeah, and just stuck it to the wall.
And of course, I'm sure we all spotted it. The Silurians at the back, you could see the mask at the back was coming off. You could see their T-shirt underneath half the time.
Yeah.
The lighting, shocking.
Should have been dark, flickering light, and everything should be broken a bit like it was with later with Colin Baker, you know. But Colin Baker's a brilliant lighting actually for his series.
Yeah. What was it? I
think the other thing about it is that it had a reasonable amount of money spent in terms of the actors. There were good actors in that.
Yeah.
And so for Ian McCulloch is in terms of survivors, and Tom what's his face, who was in the Needham Line and various other things. Those are good standard actors for those type of roles. And Ingrid Pitt is a name.
Oh yeah.
In terms of that, so they weren't stinting on that part of it.
Yeah.
Now, was it you, Jeremy, who mentioned it was that the Sea Devils had been shown in the comic strip?
Yeah, going back into 1982.
Yeah. So if I just show examples, folks, because it did. I mean, the Merca. It made me wonder whether this was supposed to be what the Merca, that's the manifestation it should have been. But if I just go back, I'm in the wrong place. I always am. It's classic. When I index things, I index them badly half the time. But if let me have a look. I'll come back to it. When I got it, I got it from the magazine that you pointed out. We're in the loft, Jeremy. There it is. You know, there it is. Not very well seen there with all our green screen, but. God, you remember that? It's only 5 pages.
I couldn't tell you what the story is about. I had a quick resume on the summary on the internet about it, but I knew the story was there, which has been printed up in the monthly.
Well, there it is. So thanks for the nod, because I went looking for our viewers here, and yes, it's issue 61. It was kind of preserved in my loft. Went straight to it, Devil of the Deep. And of course, you had the pirates idea, which is where I started to wonder where Legend of the Sea came from.
Yeah.
And yeah, 5 pages, was it? Or 4 pages? I can't remember here. But you've got a little kind of bit of dialogue with a couple of pirates, and we get a bit of timey-wimey, and then the story's over. But what I want to focus you on is this little bit here. It might be of interest of where we're going to go with this, maybe. My race lived on this planet many millions of years ago. We slept to avoid a catastrophe, and most of my people still sleep. My hibernator was defective, and I awoke 10 years ago. Do not be afraid, I mean you no harm. And he's actually been kind. It had been no shark that I had seen. It had been this creature who saved my life. Now, look, I'm a scientist. I study the differences that the years have created between my time and yours. You may stay here if you wish until you are well. And then the last shot I've got is, after a while, I grew used to his startling form and to like him. He was gentle, kind, and hungry for knowledge. Some things never change. Evolution has raised your species to the mastery of Earth, but the turtles live as they always did. And
so it's Sea Devil Friday.
There you go. It is. It is. I mean, you know, all we need is a bit of Robinson Crusoe, and we're away with it. I mean, oh yeah, let's have the music. Yeah, let's break the copyright to death. But yeah, it's. I mean, it's a simple story. That's why I said to you, Jeremy. Gosh, you remembered that. I mean, you must have wanted to see the Sea Devils in comic strip or something to remember that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I prefer the Countdown comic strip and the TV comic strips. They're obviously a lot simpler stories than they are now, but yeah, I wasn't all that keen on the Marvel ones personally myself. Occasionally I do read them, but yeah.
Now, just while we're kind of venturing through here, because I don't want to leave the kind of controversies of the spin-off, here's a question for you all in the thread. And I'm probably going to start with Hugh first, because Hugh's been kind of tempting me here. Right. Since we don't sound happy with the spin-off being the Sea Devils and this strange title, The War Between the Land and the Sea, what spin-off would you honestly like? I grant us, I think we all agree that it's too soon. Grant us, we should establish the Doctor Who franchise again first. But taking them all as givens, what would you like as a spin-off in Doctor Who that, you know, is uncharted territory? Now, Hugh, you had some thoughts.
Yeah. So first of all, I will sort of happily contradict myself here and bring back a number of things. And I will also, I'm not ripping off the comment from Arch Colin earlier, but my vision is of Cyberman, a Dalek, and a Sontaran, who are all effectively rebels from their own cause, who are realizing that they're different, whether they've gone through time loops or whatever, and that it's done as animation, and that it's about them encountering the problems of not being of their race, and that it's done in some ways as a soap opera, but it's only 5 or 10 minutes here or there, and that you then can change the construct of that, because maybe one of them will actually get killed, and that will create some jeopardy there, and that other ones can come in. But it's just, as I say, it's the format. I'm thinking more around having animation and 5 or 10 minutes rather than something that's going to cost lots and involve other things, and can be sort of like a 10-minute story rather than 25, 50 minutes.
What age range would you be aiming at?
I think you're aiming at your intelligent 8 to 12-year-olds.
Not fantasy?
Not fantasy. I think it should be very hard science fiction, or as hard as you can get it. In terms of that, you avoid, if it's animation, you avoid having to do sort of like the really expensive stuff. You know, you can have a Goblin King that moves about if you want a Goblin King, but that type of thing, it seems to me, is about creating a spin-off for a different grouping rather than something that's we're going to think, you know, should he be appearing in this, or should David Tennant? Well, maybe, but minimal stuff. And I say, quick, keep it going, give it a different type of thing. Put it as a, you know, online rather than anything else, so that it's not taking away from Doctor Who.
What would you? Are you saying Christopher H. Bidmead had science fiction?
I think you could certainly do that. I think you've got. I think you're also doing more personal story in terms of whatever individual species you put through this. The whole thing about it, in terms of those 3 species as classic ones, is sort of like this relates to an extent to what we're going to discuss on Tuesday. But you avoid in general with that type of thing about breeding, because they don't. So you would have the issue of personal relationships, but you wouldn't have the issue of sex.
Yeah. No, I know. We're probably running against the tide slightly, aren't we, with that one? Paul, I'm sorry. Let's have a look. Jeremy, what were you thinking of a possible spin-off?
Well, either bring back K9 and Company in a slightly different form. Obviously, you couldn't bring back Sarah Jane, but bring back kind of the original K9, not this new one that can hover and fly all around the place. But as I say, I've not seen that one. Or preferably bring back the Daleks with a kind of, Daleks type Blake 7 setup, where the Federation really are the Daleks, and you have like a new team, as it were, very similar to Blake 7, and then you've got lots of different story outlets and different stories that you could achieve on that.
I'm just looking at some of our comments as we go along here. But the K9 and Company idea, Jeremy, why did it fail? I thought it failed in 1981. Did you?
It's hard to say, really, because it was very interesting. I mean, the first time it was on, I couldn't watch it because there was a power blackout.
Yeah.
So there was no, I couldn't video record it. There was no commercial tape, so I couldn't make an initial assessment of what it was like until the repeated version, which was, I don't know, was it 2 years later or something?
Yeah.
But I think if they'd backed it up with 5 or 6 episodes, then obviously you could make more of a better judgment on that. But it's just sad that Elizabeth Sladen's no longer around.
Yeah.
But it could quite easily work with somebody else or a team of actors, and K9, the original K9, comes back to Earth, and it's a kind of a spin-off from Unit, maybe a scientific team spin-off from Unit with the original K9.
Now, I haven't asked PD yet, so Jeremy, we've heard your idea, we've heard Hugh's, but before I get to PD, Hugh and Jeremy, your ideas, is the Doctor involved? I know you said a bit, Hugh, there, because I find a spin-off without Doctor Who and the TARDIS, just as I said, I think in my rant, it's the Ugly Sister. It doesn't work for me.
So I think you could have any of the Doctors involved there, because you would avoid the age thing. As I say, that's one of the reasons why I think animation would work, because you then have the possibility of doing something like, that's the great advantage of Big Finish and stuff, that you can have different people. So you could have certainly involvement, but the involvement, I think, then has to be driven by whatever is happening in Doctor Who, not what's happening in the spin-off.
Now, Jeremy, same thing. Would the Doctor be involved in your spin-off of K9?
Only a hint. But if you're going to have a spin-off, then it has to be a standalone on its own. It has to stand up on its own feet. And particularly if you're going to do one, you really need to be doing 5 or 6 episodes to back it up, so people then can do an assessment on it and say, can we get another series out of this or not?
You see, look, I'm only speaking for myself, but when I watched K9 Company, the bit I liked the best was when Sarah Jane opened the box and there was a note from the Doctor, and the Doctor was mentioned. That was my favorite bit. And so maybe the story didn't really deliver, a bit of witchcraft and this, that, and the other. It wasn't my thing at all. But yeah, I just thought it was the reference to the Doctor. It was the same with the Sarah Jane adventures. I didn't watch them all, but the ones I remark on are the links to the series proper. So you got, Matt Smith in it. You got visitations from a Doctor, that kind of thing. I haven't asked you, PD, what if I said all the givens are there, the Doctor Who franchise is established, so we're not rushing now. What sort of spin-off would you bring back?
Do you know what I'd do, Brendan? I'd bring the Ice Warriors back and have an Ice Warriors series. Why they left Mars and when I'm joining the Federation, bumping into the Doctor every once in a while, and just sorting out things in the galaxy and about their warrior race. Something totally different.
It did intrigue me that we've never been. Oh, God, tell me, we have been to Mars, haven't we? The Empress of Mars.
Yeah, once.
But yeah, didn't appeal. I've forgotten it already. But yes, I was always. I like the way Brian Hill set it up. I was really intrigued by their caste system. Yeah. I really wanted to. It was a bit like Draconia. I really liked to see a bit more of that. I didn't like how they were brought back. I mean, the submarine one, Yeah, that one where they invented new things with the ice warriors. We got some new ideas about them, and here we go again. You know, that was what bothered me.
Oh, and Moffat actually did Aliens.
Yes.
Brings back.
Oh, let's have a look. Let me just get rid of the picture. Yeah, what was that again?
Bring the Daleks back. That's what I say.
Well, maybe not in that. Well, you're giving me nightmares of the paradigm there. John, can you hear us? Oh, John's been having problems with sound and everything tonight. We keep giving it a go. John, are you go and give you a go at the moment? Are you there? Go and speak to us. Is everything okay? It's not working at the moment. It's such a shame. We tried it all yesterday and it's just not working. So, PD, I get you with the Ice Warriors. But what would you... You know, we said there's a problem. Unit versus the Sea Devils, blah, blah, blah. Modern day Earth, my Japanese not weed idea and all the rest of it. But we'd go to Mars, would we? We'd
or be take it from their inauguration into the Federation as well. That might be interesting.
Yeah, and I heard it. We had a discussion recently, and I was surprised that I like the Ice Lord, and I had a debate because people were saying, no, I hated that bit. I like the Ice Warriors as they were originally, almost that big Viking head sort of thing. But I actually thought they were like the Sea Devil Warriors and Warriors of the Deep. They were just token soldiers. I loved the Ice Lords.
Yeah. We could have Alpha Centauri back as well, you know.
Well, no, how can you do that, PD? What is she, he, it? Do we go there?
Well, there you put your gender there. You just put Alpha Centauri. There you go. There we go. Done. Tick the box. Done.
Let's confuse the kids. There's 97 sexes, and then you've got Alpha Centauri.
Exactly.
They'll never finish school. There'll be another worksheet on that one. Oh, I didn't know there was a hermaphrodite, and then they'll go into school the next day declaring they're hermaphrodites. Well, I suppose that's allowed.
Exactly, Archie Collin. Connect it back to Peladon. That'd be a good idea.
Oh, I missed that one. Let's have a look. Yes. Yeah, let's have a look. Connect it to Peladon. We want to do you know the one I want? I know I'm going very niche here. Galaxy 5. I always wanted to know about Galaxy 5. They were mentioned all the time. And I know sometimes in drama and comedy, are indoors, and there's certain characters you never see, and that adds to the imagination. But I actually want to see Galaxy 5 because Star Trek I was always jealous of, because you did have the Klingon Empire, the Romulan Empire, and you had the universe was demarcated and it kind of give it a realism. And Doctor Who has just missed the trick to me. Flux doesn't help, getting rid of half the universe doesn't help. But if you have an established universe, but you had like Draconia, you had areas, I thought that added so much realism. And so, yes, Peladon, Galaxy 5, bringing all that whole context back.
Yeah.
I thought a good showrunner would establish a context.
Oh, yeah. This is the problem. You've got this big, bold galaxy out there, and you've got Russell T Davies just setting it on Earth all the time. It's like, we go to see the galaxy, see what's left of the galaxy.
Well,
see the Federation.
Do you think he's weaving it together? I'm wondering why he hasn't gone far with these 4 specials. And is it because he's thinking, how the hell do I get around this?
Well, again, that's part of the problem, though, because we went as far as we'd ever been, apparently, in Wide Blue Yonder. Well, which can't have been as far as we've ever been, because there used to be more of it to go to because of Flux.
And that's getting tedious. Let's always go to the end of the universe or the edge of the universe. Or you think, oh, for God's sake, let's just dwell in some middle bit.
Yeah, where did Tom Baker go? East space, went further than the universe, mate.
Yeah. Let's and that's the issue. I think he's RTD is deliberately missing some awkwardnesses at the moment, and he definitely is when he says, "I want to do fantasy." Because fantasy means he can make up all his old rules and do it so different. And a bit like that Mavity idea, you start to wonder whether this Mavity parallel universe, hocus pocus.
You have the rumour there, Brendan. Sorry to interrupt.
Go on.
He's trying to, apparently there's a rumour going around, he's trying to take on Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling by making a fantasy show instead.
I did think I did think, because, mind you, isn't that a fool's errand? If you are up against such an established brand, you need to think you're good enough to beat it, or just avoid it and do something very different. You know, unique selling points need to be done well. And who's going to beat J.K. Rowling at her own game?
Nobody.
No.
And why do it with something that's already established with its own unique selling point?
Yeah.
Exactly. USP.
Hi, John. Nice to see you, John Yulden. If it was any other era, I'd be interested in this spin-off, because you could create a great series where Sea Devils and Silurians at war with humanity stuck in the middle. We were just discussing earlier, John, that we're wondering about whether, you know, war, adventure, action, are we just going down this kind of toy soldiers road, and basically cheating out of good story writing? You know, it's an excuse for big budget explosions and all the rest of it. But yeah, I know we've all said earlier in the show we're worried sick about whether we should be bringing anything back at all. So we've had a quick look at Rories of the Deep, where I think the problems started. I'm going to give you all nightmares now, because if the problems started there, we then went to, and like I said, I watched this today.
No.
I know, and all that. I mean, that was the trailer poster of From Respect Pirates. We need pirates. The comic strip kind of did that. Yeah. So we've gone from Mandarin kind of warrior samurai costume to pirates. We're back to the Far East. I know it was established because of the actual pirate they were focusing on. Was it Madam Ching? Yeah. But, you know, flying ships. I know I'm taking you through nightmare years here, but having watched it again, it didn't ever get explained to me, did it? Why the Sea Devils suddenly had this ability to appear in a cloud of green smoke. I mean, he just appeared on a ship. He just appeared like some sort of ghostly apparition. And I thought, where the hell why are we turning the Sea Devils? I thought the whole point of the Sea Devils and the Silurians is they're basically like humanity, but they're reptilian. The issue is that we're very similar. We once had the planet, now we have to share it. It's that kind of, we're all equal, but why can't we share? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas,
if we have flying ships, are they going to go into battle against the goblins?
Yeah.
Well, and thank God we've got so many church steeples around, because we know the solution.
and just in terms of flying ships, the one thing that comes to my mind on that is time bandits rather than anything else.
Yeah. And State of Decay, because I think obviously the Goblin King death was
Yeah,
it's good old State of Decay, but that was done nicely and cleverly, I thought. I may say so. So yes, we had those costumes, this setup, their strange ghostly apparitions, the fact that they had this amazing dwelling. It was very like Stingray base, it seemed to me, with this ship at the bottom of the ocean. Again, I can't knock the prosthetics. I can't knock that. I mean, you know, they were realized well for what they were, but I didn't like their voice. I didn't like the fact that they had a costume. To me, these are harsher when they have, as we said, the original costume, which was more that had dragged themselves out of the sea. A bit like, sorry, go on, Hugh, go on.
No, I mean, you know, the whole thing about that then is you don't have any problems with cultural appropriation because it's so simple that it just works, as opposed to because you can't you're not going to design a costume now that won't be some form of cultural appropriation.
Not unless if you're tapping into humanity, you're in a big problem.
It does come from somewhere, Brendan.
I know, this is it, isn't it? A problem. This is, I mean, you know, I set the standard. If you're going to set the argument and preach to me, as RTD does, that, you know, the Celestial Toy Maker is a problem, that Davros is a problem, well, just make sure that what you create for me has no problems to it, because I'll ram the argument back in your face. You know, I have to say, I could not believe my eyes when I saw the Geordie Doctor in a Mandarin costume and yet the celestial toy maker had to be turned into a kind of top-hatted and Bavarian type person.
Yeah.
And Bavarian's not a problem either. There's no historical issues there, are there? I mean, RTD, just leave it. You're not clever enough for that one. You might win awards with drama, but historically, you are all over the shop.
I thought they were worshipping Germans at the moment.
Well, so I know I can tell from the panel you really love me dwelling on this one, don't you? I'll make you squirm for 1 or 2 minutes. There's a comparison for you. We're getting closer to the Sea Devils original. I mean, when you compare those two costumes, there you go. I find there's no match. There's just no. The original there looks quite savage. They look quite primitive. They really do look a little mind. I think if you put a monster in costumes, you make them less scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll drag it out a little bit more there. There you go. I think the match doesn't work again. What about this? You know, when was it season 9 on the Blu-ray collection when they do those little trailers, and we had Joe Grant, of course, with 2 people, and there was sexuality issues there that came to the fore, and you had a baby Sea Devil. We could have that. We could have a family of Sea Devils, PD.
Yeah, could do. Be one way to go, but without the what I call the Hollyoaks in space about it.
Mind you, if you're going to do family politics, especially in 2024, I think you're going to hit all the usual areas.
You're going to be Star Beast again, aren't you? You're going to have Star Beast all over again.
Yep, that little sea turtle there. Sorry, I hope I haven't mislabeled you, mate.
Can't call him devil.
He or she has a voice, and maybe they feel Silurian, maybe they don't feel Sea Devil, and they want to be brought up appropriately. I mean, there's all that nonsense to come, isn't there?
Yeah,
so we could sort of do Romeo and Juliet with the Silurian and the Sea Devil.
Oh, you mean like the Paternoster Gang? We were kind of going there, and that tongue was like whiplash. Yes, I know. Right. I think you want a bit of nostalgia that's nice nostalgia that feeds you. So shall we go to good old? There we go.
That's better.
Decent lighting, decent book. What got you? I assume you all saw the Sea Devils at the time. Am I right in thinking that?
I wasn't old enough.
You weren't old enough. Sorry, PD. PD. Okay, then. Did the Sea Devils win you all over? So when you did see it, PD, whenever you saw it, whether it was on DVD, I can't remember if it was on a repeat for your age, but basically, are there a monster that you really, a go-to monster for you? Did they win you over imagination-wise?
Yeah, they were fine. I mean, when I finally got the one DVD version with the colorized episode, they were fine. It was very political. I found the Sea Devils. I kind of liked it. It was more cerebral sci-fi, like good old-fashioned science fiction. And I always like it. I always thought Doctor Who is, it can be a little bit whimsical in places, but I always like it when they make it slightly cerebral and you've got to think about the episode.
Yes.
That's where the linking in with Unit worked.
Yeah.
Because you could do that, and you could have the Doctor as opposed to Unit, and the attitude in general of Unit. So I think you could do that, and it became more intellectual.
Yeah.
But if you then take the Doctor away, you're just going to shoot things, aren't you?
Oh yes, you got to have the Doctor as an ambassador, don't you, for other alien races?
There's going to be 5 rounds rapid at everything.
Oh yeah.
And have I overly criticised Warriors of the Deep and the fact that the Sea Devils were second class to Silurians? Because actually, when I do think of our good old Sea Devil story, the Master was kind of trying to manipulate them, really, wasn't he? And I feel like the Sea Devils have never had a story to themselves, apart from the one we just mentioned that we didn't like. They haven't really been given a chance to really flourish, have they?
Which makes them difficult to bring back, I think.
For one reason in particular, Hugh, the showrunner might decide to just add his gloss to them and ignore anything Malcolm Hulke set up in the first place.
Yeah.
They can now all fly.
Isn't it? It makes me sick, you know. I mean, you know, I don't know what you were all like when you were younger, what you wanted as careers, but you know, there's an element where, you know, I wrote a few scripts and thought, you know, if I was lucky and all the rest of it, and you know, not all of us was lucky as Andrew Smith, so to speak, with Full Circle. But you know, I always thought if I write a script for Doctor Who, I'll have to be original. And yet you've got RTD now, second time as showrunner, and he just seems to be mining canon easily, or mining fantasy goblins, nicking ideas from Panto, you know, Jack and the Beanstalk, up and down to that goblin ship you go. It just seemed to me that he wouldn't pass the course now as a Doctor Who script. I don't think he'd pass muster.
No, he wouldn't, Brendan. This is why I've got a bit of a thing against RTD, because he's always just mining the past. I mean, the Ninth Doctor's regeneration was stolen from an Eighth Doctor comic strip. He just goes pinching. So leave it alone. Leave it in the past, you know? It's not your idea. Don't run with it, you know? And he's just constantly just stealing from other people's ideas. That's what's been driving me nuts about RTD since the day he brought Doctor Who back. I'm happy he brought Doctor Who back, but seriously, just come up with your own ideas. You're supposed to be this award-winning writer with BAFTAs coming out your proverbial backside. Why do you have to steal other people's ideas? There you go, rant over.
To an extent, you know, all literature and all television is about stealing other ideas to an extent, but you have to do something with them. You have to go, okay, let's start with this, but then what do I add to it? What do I bring to that to make it different? And whether that's, you know, a new monster, or whether it's, you know, we do look at the Sea Devils and we do a full, this is what their culture is. And it's got all of this structure, and you know that this is how you become head Sea Devil. Then it becomes interesting because you're filling in details, but you have to work with it and add to it.
Adding to what you said there, my friend, it's like it's like difference between a Tempest and a Forbidden Planet. But the problem is RTD will just dump the Tempest in and work the show around it. It's like, it's not the Tempest, mate. It's Forbidden Planet.
Yeah, and I just, like I said, don't preach to me, because I will throw stuff back. When RTD has said, I mean, he's shown in the dialogue for Star Beast, you know, he had that bit. I'd never heard of dead naming. I'd never heard of it. That don't dead name me and all the rest of it. From the trans character Rose. And when he showed Isaac Newton of different ethnic origin, I just thought, Isaac Newton's family, they are real, you know. I mean, you've just completely changed their etymology. You've just completely changed them. How can you do that? I'm sorry, it's a historical fact. It's nothing to do with what my politics is about race. It's just, you're changing something fundamental. And when he's talking about dead naming a trans character, you know, you can't use their original name because it's now transitioned. Okay, right, we respect that then, okay. But can't we respect the Isaac Newton family then? That actually,
probably
not. And so when it comes to, and so my 2 points fusing together are all about the fact that RTD, as Archer Collins says there, it's more of plagiarism. I'm sorry, but when you take Malcolm Hulke's original creation, be extremely respectful and don't change where Malcolm Hulke was taking them.
Exactly. I mean, going back to the Isaac Newton thing, Brendan, it's like you could have had a really good thing in there, and you could have put Brian May in that, because he has the hair like Isaac Newton, and that would have everyone would have gone, "Well, Brian May's in it. Got to watch that," you know.
And then you think, why are they doing it? Why are they doing it instead of just getting on with the script? But I do have a problem with RTD, who tells us all these things, and clearly he has been in the Sea Devils back in the spin-off, and I'm thinking, but you better be respectful, therefore, of. And remember, the other thing that he has said recently, and I'm throwing back at him, is he said he wants to respect his mate Chris Chibnall's work. So if you're going to respect Chris Chibnall's work, I would just say quietly, will you respect Malcolm Hulke's work, please?
Yeah, I know. If you know me, Brendan, my biggest pet peeve is the movie Prometheus. And it's just the way it just literally took a massive dump on Aliens franchise. I mean, it's not taking the progressive stuff out of the way and put it to the side. If you do that, if you take a massive dump on someone else's franchise, I will just come at you.
Yeah.
Guns are blazing. I mean, I don't respect. You've got to respect where things come from.
Yeah, you. Well, yeah. I mean, especially when you're saying nowadays you have to respect everybody for this, that, and the other.
But they disrespect everyone.
So
Just to, I just see that Scottish Stavros asked about dead naming. No, dead naming's a concept in the real world. That's not Russell's concept. You can get into trouble, and people have been sacked for it.
Especially where you are, Hugh. Definitely where you are.
yeah, because I think the context in Star Beast was that Rose was originally, was it Jason? I think she
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
but I'd never heard the dead naming concept. And I obviously had been a head of year and teacher and obviously looked after trans kids and gay kids and all the rest of it. But I'd never heard that concept. But he brought it to the fore. Thank you for that, RTD. But can you also then appreciate people, dead writers and, dead inventors and dead scientists, please respect everybody. Thank you.
But Brendan,
do
you think if they just left the dead name bit in and just dropped the rest of the trans stuff for the rest of the episode, it would have actually been a good episode?
Well, yeah, because I think the point was valid about bullying. Respect
exactly.
people. So yeah, kids shouting stuff just to kind of irritate and hurt. Yeah, the point was there. And then she goes in the house and mum and grandma, comfort her and all the rest of it. I think the story was there. You didn't have to do the pronoun bit with the 14th Doctor, and then.
Oh no, that bit with the meat was just not needed. We all knew the meat was originally male, so there we go.
The other thing about the other advance in the story is it's using the magic N word, which I won't say in terms of that. It's the magic trans character. It's just as patronising to me in terms of that.
Token characters, yeah.
So I mean, if we could actually advise RTD here, I mean, we're looking at one of those iconic pictures with the great Pertwee cape, the red and black, and you've got, he's escorted by two. I mean, look how tall they are as well. Two sea devils in their proper garb. What was it? I was going down the road there and I got sidelined by obviously the things that Peeve was about present Doctor Who. That's allowed. But what won you over? I mean, I think I mentioned in my little polemic that it was their whisper, it was their nimbleness, it was coming out the water. I mean, everybody's copied it since. We've had it in Curse of Fenric, we've had it in Full Circle. You need monsters coming out the water because the Sea Devils did it so well. And maybe they copied the Dalek invasion of Earth. I grant that. But what was it that got you about the Sea Devils, if they did? What does Russell Davies have to preserve about the original?
Their character has to be preserved, definitely. They had a character about them, and it's just not getting it. And they just don't get it now. It's just like, just put them in. Hi, I'm a Sea Devil. Kind of thing.
Yeah. And
hi, I'm a Sea Devil, fly me.
Yeah.
In terms of that, it's because they come across as recognizably a threat, but also recognizably alien.
Exactly. Yeah, they sell goblins boats now.
and they were noble as well, weren't they? I mean, that you had they allowed Pertwee's Doctor a chance to reason with them.
That's it.
Yeah. It wasn't saying, game over, we're not bargaining, we're not this, we're not that. There was a discussion, and I can't remember if it was in part 4, part 5, but yeah, you had an interesting discussion. It comes out well in the book. It was actually the first proper Doctor Who book I had. I absolutely loved it. The submarine attack, the sea base attack, these are really, to me, chilling moments when you saw that first scurry of a Sea Devil. And notice when it first encountered the Doctor, I don't think we had a shot. They just looked at each other, didn't they? Because I think Pertwee got a chance to say something like hello or something. There was a bit of dialogue before they got scared, and then the Sea Devil jumping overboard after he got electrocuted from the door. The attack on the submarine was chilling. Absolutely loved it. And I think they've missed the point since. A flying ship in Legend of the Sea Devils, no, doesn't work. Samurai sword that's a bit like a lightsaber. No. Warriors of the Deep. Well, I actually think, although I liked the storyline, I just think they were so ill-served in that one that I wish they were just erased. So going back to this, I don't think, unlike Malcolm Hulk, nobody else has actually understood what to do with a sea devil to make us scared.
Pete, you're right there.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
I know. Sorry, I'm trying to engender debate, and I think we all.
No, wait. I think there's no. The problem with Warriors of the Deep is that if they just had Silurians in red shots, I would have what?
Yeah. What was it, PD, when you saw them on a DVD? How old were you then?
Probably in my 20s or 25, actually.
So there's not. So it's not going to be a chilling issue. Could you see an element of them that's made them stand out?
Yeah, but they just had this kind of mystique about them. They were just very mysterious creatures. The way they walked up the beach,
Yeah.
they were attacking the naval base. It was like, they just had the thing. They could just come out of the water anywhere. They had the kind of stealthiness about them.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I kind of liked, was it a juxtaposition, or did it kind of work that you had the Navy versus the Sea Devils? I kind of quite like that because they were both, the aquatic nature of it, Jeremy, I haven't brought you in. Sorry. What was it that got you and actually got you to buy that mask? What is it about the Sea Devils?
Well, I watched it first time round. So I was about, 10 years old. So, yes, it was quite iconic seeing the Sea Devils come out of the sea. But also the whole of the story. It was very well done. So that was part and parcel of the excitement of watching the show back then. And, then seeing the repeat, of course, which you had to watch back then. And, of course, over the years, it's been it's still a very watchable, set of 6 episodes.
And there's your answer, actually, Jeremy. 6 episodes. If I am right, well, it's not about me being right, is if the Mirror's right about the war between the land and the sea spin-off by the BBC. Yeah. 5 episodes. My fear is there will be separate episodes like you had in Torchwood and Sarah Jane Adventures and in Doctor Who presently. And you won't have a lovely build-up. You said you loved part 1 of Warriors of the Deep. I'm sure you loved part 1 of this. And establishment of mood, fear, scares, iconic moments like coming out of the sea, those will all be lost because coming out of the sea was one thing, wasn't it, Jeremy? But the other thing was you had Joe and the Doctor trapped by a minefield. So it was a hell of a moment. And we don't have time for that now, do we? In a 45 or 50-minute episode where everything has to be resolved.
Well, maybe they should go back to certainly the two-part story, even if it's a 50-minute two-parter, to bring back the cliffhanger, as they did with The Time of the Angels, which was great. And it was only spoilt by Graham Norton cartoon at the right of the bit in the transmission of it, but it was a really good cliffhanger. So I think there's that missing element as well.
I again, so maybe even think of going back to 25, 30-minute episodes.
Yeah. But they say that won't work because today's a different generation.
Well, Moffat made it work with the season 9. He kept doing 2-parters and 3-parters. That worked really well.
But you see, I don't understand this, right? I'm just starting doing this YouTube thing as an example, and I'm told shorts work. We're all told that the Generation Z have a short attention span. So why the hell are we doing 1-hour stories when we could do, as you're saying, 25-minute stories that would be seen as shorts for them? But we could then put 4 or 5 together to build up a story. I don't understand that I'm being told by people in the profession, sorry, that doesn't work. I mean, they're ignoring Line of Duty, for example. They're ignoring various other stories that do actually have episodic.
All main soap operas are 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But
that's realised, yeah.
But their argument is that today's audience is not going to sit down for 25 minutes and watch part 1 of a 6-part story spread over 6 weeks. and that's their argument. So they prefer it in one story, 50-minute story, but it doesn't give you enough time for character development, enough time for pacing. All
Yeah, the thing is, no one, well, hardly anyone nowadays sits down and watches something in 50 minutes for a week. It's streamed for a reason. And surely if we're streaming, you can binge and you can also put in cliffhangers.
Yeah.
What you're just saying there, Hugh, for example, people do binge watch. It's a fad. So how come people can binge watch, but we can't show 25 minutes? That if you wanted to binge watch all 6 episodes of 25 minutes, you could. But then we equally serve the people who say they've got a very short attention span and do a 25-minute. But then you get back to the DNA of Doctor Who. And I do think it's the core DNA of Doctor Who, which is you have to have cliffhangers. You have to have scares. And I'm sorry, but the Giggle, the Wild Blue Yonder, all of these episodes do not scare. They just have stunts joined to another stunt, joined to another event. That's it.
Yeah, just little tiny bits of sort of scary bits scattered throughout the episode. But you've got to have a good start, a good middle, and a good end.
And it might be genius to really strongly, as a showrunner, say, "Oh, this is not the way cliffhangers and episode. It's not the way to do it." It stops RTD having to try to build up fear, to have to try to build up atmosphere, to have to try and do a beginning, middle, and end over 3-4 weeks, because you've got to hope that your first episode is promising enough to bring them back. And I sometimes wonder whether it's a cheap shot just to do one-off episodes.
This sort of relates back to what I was saying about my spin-off idea, that I think you can use spin-offs to do a different function. So if you are running that, then you use this to do, here's a different approach, and it gets a different audience in.
Yeah, you're diversifying properly. I mean, John Yuleden's just said then, you said wrapping up John Yuleden in 10 minutes. Are you sure it's 10 minutes and you're not exaggerating? I mean, it seems to me RTD wraps up in about a minute.
Yeah.
Quick reboot, press a button. And I'm sorry, I was watching Legend of the Sea Devils today, as I've said a few times now, because I want brownie points for this. And it was, I still don't know how the hell they solved anything, really. Jodie Whittaker very quickly pressed some buttons, did this, the ship went up, bang, bang, bang. It's the classic David Tennant rushed dialogue that nobody's ever supposed to really analyze the transcript. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, we're over. And then we have time to say, can we go on the beach next time and have some me time with each other? You know, there's enough time for that. So it's RTD who wants to do more about emotional relationships. So while I'm just saying that, and this time I won't talk about fishnets, I will mention our Tuesday show for a reminder, everybody. Too much sex in the TARDIS, too much hanky-panky going on, too much sexualization, too much romance. We will be discussing that on Tuesday at 4 p.m. If you can join us. If you can't, please join us later. Get a notification. And as I was saying earlier as well, please like and subscribe. I'm working on the goodwill of my mates here who come on and give me their time. I'm trying to just make this channel a bit entertaining, etc. as well. We've just started. We're not even been here a month. And if you don't think of me, as I said, I am raising money through these subscriptions to the Peladonian miners who've become unemployed because of the Galactic Federation's modernization technology. So please buy into my claptrap. So as we wrap up, folks, is there anything we've missed about this spin-off and our fears and Sea Devils and everything? Or have we well and truly covered what you wanted to talk about?
I just want to know one thing, Brendan. Is there going to be a two-parter that it's all going to lead into?
What, sorry, are you saying...
In Doctor Who, is there going to be a springboard episode to lead into a spin-off, or is it just going to happen?
Yes, because my thinking about Torchwood was we had that episode, was it Wolf and... it's the one with Queen Victoria, wasn't it?
Yeah. Tooth and Claw.
That's it. And Torchwood was mentioned then. And then did we see Torchwood, or did we have that Cyberman two-hander
No, which was Torchwood as well. That's
Yeah,
when they
yeah.
appear, and then they're destroyed, but the Cardiff branch continues.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's so much money going into Cardiff. I mean, that's the place, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, PD, what would you prefer? Would you want some of Doctor Who's precious 8 episodes being used as a lead into a spin-off?
Well, you just can't go straight into a spin-off without kind of a springboard. You need to have a springboard in the main show to spin it off, because a lot of people, well, we all remember the Sea Devils from the Jodie episode and before, but will a new audience remember them? So you need to have a springboard of some kind.
Unless, I mean, I can see what Hugh's saying. If it's a completely different show, if it's almost disconnected apart from the name and some of the context, maybe that's the way to go. Obviously, they're not doing cartoon or animation. Who are they? They're actually, I mean, it's that expensive unit set. We all know that expensive unit set is going to be used. But one of the rumors was that it was going to be, I mean, I've heard different things. One is that this will introduce unit, and then the spin-off after that will be unit. So PD, it kind of does what you say, but later on, that maybe, I assume RTD, you know what he's like. He's a soap opera writer, really.
Yeah.
He will link Doctor Who to the spin-off, and then the spin-off will link to another spin-off, which might be unit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which has got me spinning all over the shop thinking, but what about Doctor Who?
Yeah, you kind of see it with the unit, with the robot and all that. They're all set up already, and all Melanie Bush turning up. So yes, I think you might be right there.
I don't want to be right.
That robot scares me.
Yes. I mean, what's it called again? Oh God, I can't remember.
Yeah. I can't even remember. It starts with V, but it's just thrown in, so therefore it must have some purpose. But you then got to give that a backstory. What else was it doing?
There might be a female one. There might be another one. Like you have a lot of different droids everywhere. I hear your point from earlier on, Hugh. You were saying you really don't want a unit spin-off.
No.
I am a bit bored by a unit spin-off. I like some of the companions coming back, but that's not good enough to give me a 5 or 6 part series on unit. And actually, isn't this what Doctor Who's doing anyway? I mean, Doctor Who is on present day Earth, fighting the fight, and then it's over in an hour. Unit will just be more of the same, but without the Doctor. I can't see the point.
And you've got to ask at that point, if David Tennant, if 10 and 14 is sitting in a garden in Chiswick, presumably you're going to pop round and say, what do we do now?
No, he's been signed up for the new series of Gardener's World.
Moles are us.
I think David Tennant's Doctor's too busy gardening and everything. I don't think he's going to have his own Channel 5 series. He'd be doing makeovers of gardens. I think there's that as well.
How clearly for TARDIS.
I really don't think he'll have time, Hugh. I mean, honestly, I'm shocked about that. But so I know you don't want unit at all, Hugh. So, not as a central thing. Obviously, I quite like the whole Lethbridge Stewart connection and stuff like that, and it works whenever, because to the extent Torchwood replaced Unit initially in Series 2, and you then got the tension between Torchwood and the Doctor that you'd already had between Unit and the Doctor, because there has to be tension. It can't be him wandering around going, "Oh, what a big gun you have." Yeah, and are you the face of Bo? Give us a kiss, because that seemed to be, instead of John Pertwee telling off the Brigadier and tut tut tut, you had you basically had Captain Jack and the Doctor kind of giving each other the eye. It seemed to be a different kind of scenario suddenly. That's how you get relations with the military, you see now. That's how you get your deal. So when I asked you earlier about what you wanted from a spin-off, I'm going the other way just to kind of round off then. An area you wouldn't want them to do. So I know Hugh has said Unit. PD, an area you really don't want them to go on the spin-off. Please don't do.
I don't really know. Probably something they haven't done before. Sorry, something they've done before. Just stay away from what you've done before. Just
Yeah,
go with something completely different.
Yeah, don't do a Sarah Jane with Mel or somebody else.
Yeah, or
'Cause it is-
or Torchwood again. It's just
I mean, Ace is mentioned a lot, isn't she? And they've teed her up in Tales of the TARDIS and Power of the Doctor. You start to think, are you teeing up Ace?
Yeah, well, Ace Adventures would be good, but it'll be on Earth. That's the problem.
Again.
You need to be out there in the galaxy, showing the galaxy, because it's a science fiction in space and time, not science fiction on this time on Earth.
Since PD were obsessed with canon and continuity, the Flux has destroyed everything. So there's nothing nothing there.
Will it just destroy 6 planets? We don't know.
Well, if we go to the edge, there might be something. Jeremy, what do you want us not to touch as a spin-off?
I'd rather them not do a spin-off, basically. I'd rather them save the money, spend it on the series, or let's have an extra episode of Doctor Who, but make it a good one. Or bring back the Daleks with, some Space Force fighting the Daleks.
What about, everybody, since me and PD were just mentioning then a spin-off, Doctor Who's franchise spinning into a spin-off, then the spin-off leads to another spin-off like Unit. But I go back to the very beginning, just to remind everybody as we finish, that one of the articles was saying, wasn't it? Let me just get it up there. If I can get the right piece. They were talking about how you tell the story, and that this will be from the viewpoint possibly of the monster. So if you had a 5-part series with the Sea Devils first, go along with this for a second. Where would the spin-off be if it wasn't Unit? After you've done the 5-part series of the Sea Devils, where would you think we could go next as the second spin-off?
Maybe the Silurians.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think you then develop the culture against the Silurians, and whether it's in conflict or whether it's because they have different plans.
Now, Scottish Davros here, Daniel has said, don't touch Gallifrey. Well, I mean, Big Finish are big on this. We've got the Time War. We've got Romana as president. There's all that stuff. Would you not go there? Because that would get you out of modern day Earth.
Yeah, I'm with Scottish Davros on this. I think it's the problem you've got is we've traumatized the previous Doctors because of what happened in Time War, and then this whole move that nothing really happened, and he's run away from Gallifrey for a reason.
Yeah.
Oh, because he's adopted now or something. He's a foundling.
Yeah, but he's run away. I mean, he ran away from it because it was he didn't like it, and that's true in The Deadly Assassin as well.
Yeah. It doesn't sell it well, does it? I want to go back to that place and do a whole mini-series on that boring place. What about this idea?
Politics in space, wouldn't it? Be going back to Gallifrey.
Oh yeah. What about this one from Raymond Williams, the Sontarans? What about the Clone Wars?
That'd be an interesting one to do. Looking into the Sontaran Clone Wars against the Rootans.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually earlier, I apologize, whoever it was, somebody did mention the Rootans. Yeah, I know, and I'm listening to Hugh's point as well, as we don't just want to do war for the sake of it, but you could get, and listening to PD's point about bringing back the Ice Warriors, you could do something, couldn't you, where you had either the Rootans and the Sontarans, or the Ice Warriors are part of a battle against Draconia and all the rest of it, and Earth, and you get a setup going on there. It's a possibility. It's not on Earth though.
The other thing that you could do in that type of thing is similarly to the Klingons in Star Trek, and how they become allies rather than enemies.
Yeah.
Would you like that? A political space show?
Again, I think you'd have to. I don't think you want it to be. I don't think you want it to be Babylon 5.
Yeah.
But I think you could get away with Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. It's a good show.
Yeah.
One of my favourites.
Well, Jeremy, it looks as though you've got our chief Sea Devil friend there. Is this to say goodbye? I mean, I've asked for subscriptions twice. I will just advertise very quickly one more time. I think we all have it on the brain. I certainly accidentally tonight have talked about fishnets and everything. Too much sex in Doctor Who. And Hugh, you have a wider point. You did tell me off, didn't you? Because it isn't really about too much sex in Doctor Who per se. What's your issue again that we're going to discuss on Tuesday?
So my whole issue with this is the introduction of the sexuality with the Doctor creates a character who is much, much older, much more experienced, in contact with, whether it's Ruby or Ruby's boyfriend or whatever, who is a 20-year-old human. And it's a power relationship. And the power relationship's what's the problem.
So please, everybody, tune in on Tuesday. Give us a look, because I think it's going to be a lively debate, because I think we're going to get quite heavy about it, about how far you can go. Again, I'm going to call out RTD. If he wants to preach to us that Davros in a wheelchair is no more because it's problematic, and Celestial Toymaker in a Mandarin costume is problematic, I find as an ex-teacher and pastoral manager, it's quite problematic. That think of the trailer in 2005 when Chris Eccleston said, "Do you want to come with me?" To a young girl. Not too sure you can sell that message in 2024 with RTD's preachy voice going. So Hugh, quite rightly, that's part of our discussion on Tuesday, and also I'll get the word sex in a few times as well, and we'll get some kissy shots, and we'll talk about whether this is just going ridiculous. And we want adventure. We don't want, bedroom politics in the TARDIS. I thought with Castrovalva and everything, we deleted half the blooming TARDIS, so there's no bedrooms left. That was my understanding. I mean, I'll say it one more time just before everybody gets sick of it. But when I had to watch Legend of the Sea Devils today, there was that clip with the TARDIS at the bottom of the ocean and they opened the doors. So that really takes all the tension out of Adric and the Fourth Doctor in Legopolis in the River Thames, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Takes it all away. Thank you for that. Cheers. Thank you for that. Yeah. So everybody, are we going to get a goodbye from the chief Sea Devil?
Good night from me. And that's good night from
I think we might see him again. I have a funny feeling I might ask it again. But anyway, you've given us a lot of time tonight, folks. I hope you all want to come back. I hope the viewers want to come back. Give us suggestions about how I can improve, maybe shut up more, maybe work my films a bit better. But please, thank you for joining us, and join us on Tuesday. Thanks again. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.